You ever thought what a financial advisor thinks about the notion of whether you should own or rent a home and ultimately how that can affect your wealth building process? We're gonna talk about that today on Mindset with Brad Barrett. Let's go. Welcome into Mindset. I am Brad Barrett. This is producer Jared, and as always, the lovely Kira. We are here talking today about a very age-old conversation, discussion, perhaps even argument, debate, whatever you want to call it, of whether or not you should rent a house or buy a house.
I don't think it's a debate, but I guess it is.
Well, depends. This is not going to be one of those videos you click on and says, here's a list of pros and here's a list of cons, you decide. We're going to go through some points like that, but I want to come at this like we do all of our episodes from experience, in the sense of like what I am doing with clients, having this exact conversation live as a financial advisor with clients. Because let me just tell you something loud and clear. It's messy. There's no right answer to this. There is sides you can take. There are stances that people take, but a lot of it stands on some belief systems that we have in place that I do feel like it's worth talking about.
Do you consider this a wealth management subject?
I do. I 100% do. As many of you know, if you don't know, one of the larger parts of my client base is working with first responders, particularly here in Los Angeles area of fire and police. So naturally, I work with a lot of younger clients sometimes when they first get on the job. You know, we're talking about deferred compensation plan, pension planning. So I'm dealing with a lot of mid to late 20-year-olds, as well as what comes with that demographic. So listen up here, Kira. There's younger marriages going on too. So this is a conversation that isn't just a singular one. It's also kind of a joint one when it comes to like maybe your husband or your wife's upbringing and their relationship to real estate, how their parents have talked to them about real estate. It's almost like a generational behavioral investment, right? Like, for example, if your parents like were always renting and they never owned, one of two things can happen. Either they are impressing upon you that you need to own, we didn't because of this reason or that reason, or they're like, no, we chose not to do that because we want the flexibility and all this kind of stuff. Well, that presents itself onto the child in a way of, you know, how they're going to take it. But this whole thing, to me, the bedrock of this whole conversation relies on something that we all know all too well, the American dream.
The American dream.
When someone were described to you, if you just heard that term, this is interesting to ask two different generations too. I'm not going to age you here.
Sure.
He's twice my age, actually.
Yeah.
More than that.
That's actually factual.
So back to your question.
So anyways, the question is, if you were to hear the term American dream, how would you define that? If someone said, what is that?
It would be, I own a home, car in the driveway, wife and 2.2 kids, white picket fence, the dog,
the American flag flying
outside. The American flag
flying,
the dad comes home.
Kids come running down the hallway, dinner's on the table.
That's my Norman Rockwell
there you go.
Vision of the American dream.
If I were to ask you the same thing.
Same answer.
Same answer?
Hey.
What I find interesting about that is the notion in that it's all around a home.
Sure, yeah.
And we don't tend to look at it that way.
Who does? Who's not? I do.
Okay. Well, no. American dream, yes. But I'm saying when we talk about renting versus owning, it's kind of like, no, I have to own.
Oh, yeah.
It's a must.
Hey, let's get
I don't
it
get
out.
the American dream.
Or it's like the thing you should do.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I believe that. As soon as you can buy, you buy.
That's where we're going with this. Okay. So do you rent? Do you guys rent or own right now?
Rent.
Okay. So this is good. We're homeowner, renter. From an advisor's perspective, the way I bring this up is understanding affordability, lifestyle, a whole bunch of other things, right? Someone who clicked on this, someone who's watching right now, you've likely heard those pros and cons before.
I feel like the standard has been you buy, as soon as you can buy, you buy. Buying is the best way to go. But I do feel like that's a changing philosophy.
Well, yes, because of the affordability, which is real, by the way. I mentioned that a month ago or so on our show. The stats are showing that the affordability is definitely a real thing. So this isn't like we can't look down on other generations like, oh, they're not working hard enough. No, it is more expensive. It just is.
There's an interesting stat though. 87% of boomers and 83% of Gen X believe home ownership is still one of the best ways to build wealth, compared to 77% of millennials and 65% of Gen Z believe that.
Yeah, so it's going down. So the part of that stat that I think is interesting, and we'll go through the pros and cons here, and then I want to talk about this, is the wealth. This to me is interesting. This has to go way back. So come into Brad's philosophical 100-year history here for a second. There is something still out there called the accredited or affiliated family rate, AFR. You can look at it. Okay. So at the turn of the century in 1900, most of the time, most of the estates were run by the family was owning land through family loans or family help. It wasn't until the early 1900s where banks really became the intermediary. This was now born the financial services sector. Okay. It started with mortgages and lending. This has all happened just 100 years ago. Okay. This is brand new. So if you think about this, if you're watching this right now, depending on what age you are, you likely have either someone still in your life that was from that generation, raised from it, not born there per se, but raised from it, or you were raised by it. So let's say you're watching your 60s and 70s, your parents and your grandparents were from this era. Right. Even if you're in your 40s and 50s right now, think about that. Your parents were born just after this generation, and the generation that they were raised by, which is now impressed upon you, was from this. So we're not that far away. So it's not unlikely to think that the philosophy of having to own because that's what it was marketed in that time period, you have to own, and that's the way America was built, is ingrained in us. Yeah. And you point out, I'm the same way, by the way.
It's in my DNA. I'll fully admit that.
100%. I always thought growing up that as soon as I was able to and I made it, my mark of true I've made it was owning a home. That's an interesting philosophy to debunk. Wouldn't you say? That's the marker. It wasn't having a happy and healthy marriage. It wasn't being blessed with children. It wasn't finding your identity in Christ or becoming really close with God. I mean, those are important, but it was that. That's interesting. I think a lot of people share that.
I didn't feel like I was a true adult till I had a home. Even I was married. I had a great career. I had all this stuff that you could check off. When I got the keys to my first house, I was like, oh, I'm an adult now.
That's interesting. I mean, do you and Dylan ever think about that right now?
I feel like owning a home is so, I don't want to say off the table, but it's like, It seems like such an unrealistic goal, at least in like this area. You know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those like, oh, like if that happens, that's awesome. But like, that's not.
But here's what's interesting. Historically speaking, when we run financial plans, so back to this, the wealth build, is this a part of wealth management? It absolutely is, because we run what's called liquid and illiquid asset reports, right? So your liquid reports are things that you have access to. Your deferred comp plan, 401ks, savings, these are all will be accessible to you in your life at some point based on age. Then there's the illiquid side. Both are really important as you build your wealth. I'm a big believer in happy marriage between different types of asset classes. Should you own real estate? Absolutely. Should you only own real estate? Should you own equities, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, investments in the stock market? Absolutely. Should you only own those? This is what I find interesting. And this is where all of a sudden the hate's going to start coming in, because there's a lot of real estate hounds out there, and everyone thinks that, oh, a financial advisor typically talking about real estate again. And I'm like, I don't hate real estate. I have it. It's good. But it's interesting to note that stat that they say is a big part of their wealth building process, they're neglecting to go and do something that's historically been almost double the appreciation rate. If your house traded on the public stock exchange like a stock does every day where you can see it, I think people would have a lot of a different viewpoint on real estate than they do versus stocks.
Well, but I think you're owning a home though provides you with something now, right?
Correct. There's that. And it's more than just the investment, right? It's a roof over your head. It's a memory. It's the white picket fence, the family. There's stuff that comes with it.
Yeah.
I get that. But I'm just saying the connotation of it being the biggest part of your wealth building process is interesting to me.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a fair point. But if we're speaking about the psychology of that home ownership, for me, it was if I'm writing a check, that's my money. And I go, here, apartment owner.
Yep.
My money now transfers away from my wealth, whatever. If I go here, bank, to pay this mortgage off, I'm basically just, you hold it there but that's still mine.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Totally get it. And we're going to talk about that. That's the biggest, you're right. That is the ultimate X factor. Same roof, same living environment. One you're investing in, you own, one you do not.
Right.
That's the big differentiator. You can run all the schematics you want, but I agree. And that's why I do believe in home ownership. So the rent versus buy, the first take I'm going to say is, I do feel like owning a home is a good part of your wealth building journey. I will never not say that. Does it need to be that? And should you avoid other things for the sole reason of buying real estate? Potentially not. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's like, it doesn't have to be this like super narrow focus. Like if I don't own this, then I'm not an adult. Or if I don't own this, then I'm not doing something right. Okay, because you can have other things.
Because there's a lot of people that before you start investing, you start with the house. I can't invest until I have the house.
A lot of times the planning comes in, hey, we're thinking about buying a house. And I'm like, well, we go into the bucket planning scenario. So bucket planning is something with regards to like short-term, mid-term, long-term. We've talked about this before. House savings or saving up for a down payment of a house would fall into that short-term, mid-term bucket. Now the question becomes, do you prioritize, well, from a cash flow perspective, do I max out my retirement plan first and then put towards savings? That's a colorful discussion you should have with your advisor, because it's an art, not a science there. There's not a total, exact math to that. It just depends on, with me, for an advisor as a client, I look at them and I talk to them, it's like, well, how real is this to you? How important is this to you? Right? And a lot of my clients say, you know what, we're actually happy in the place we are. We're younger. We don't mind waiting 5 or 10 years okay. Then I would say, yeah, let's max out that bucket so we get that going for you. And let's put any other discretionary income towards savings, and we'll build up that down payment. I have some that might say, no, this is like my main focus.
I'm trying to think back to like when I first started seeing my financial advisor, and it was like, he was like, what do you want?
Good.
Like, I want a house.
Okay. Then a good financial advisor, will meet you where you are. It's like, I would never try to change the stripes of my clients. Like I'll try to educate, and we'll have, I think, very healthy discussions on what I'm sharing with you guys with regards to like how to look at this and say, no, I get that, Brad, but it's something that I think I really want. I'm like, okay, great. Then here's how we do it. But when you own versus rent, and everyone knows this, but at least talk about it. Obviously with rent, you have typically a lower cost, lower barrier of entry, and flexibility. Those tend to be the pros. The cons are you don't own it. The whole con is you're throwing away rent money as if it's nothing. I have a tough time with that one, because I just feel like you need a roof over your head, so you can't just say flippantly
it's
like,
not a full negative.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I struggle with that part, but like, whatever, that is a con, if you will. And the flexibility could be also a negative, where you only have a year and you have to move around a bunch and you don't like that. You want to plant roots. So some of the pros could also be cons. And the inverse of that is true for houses. So if you haven't looked at this before and you haven't talked about it, we should mention it, right? In a house, you have upfront costs. You obviously have ongoing, your mortgage and interest, depending on the house. You have to get a down payment. You're going to pay some interest on it, and your monthly might be more than rent sometimes, depending on where you are. And you own it, so you got to keep it up. You got maintenance, you got property taxes, you got insurance, you got all the things that come with it. And to be candid too, the flexibility, back to that point too, is you might be more flexible, and getting in and out of a house is not just like a flip of a switch. Selling can be a process.
Yeah, because if you're in a home and you get a job somewhere else, it's not exactly like, oh, I can get a job in Oklahoma, I can get a job in Florida.
Correct.
It locks you in.
And we've talked before, like with your career, with artists, creators, like sports, when we do athletes, stuff like that, renting sometimes might be the better bet, because they're on a yearly contract. They're not sure where they're going to be the following year. It's not a super quick, easy answer on this one, but I think whatever it is you're doing, it's not that you're doing something wrong. That's the big thing I want to take away. I feel like this rent versus buy thing, those in the rent camp feel like they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, I think just because there is that notion of like owning a home is what you should be doing,
Yeah, that I struggle with, because first off, I don't want anyone feeling down about being diligent and disciplined by paying your rent and having a place. Like, that's impressive.
I felt behind. Like as I started ticking off getting older, and like the friends had houses, I felt behind in my, I don't know if it was life or...
Well, I feel like that's a similar like feeling though, like that people have if they, like I have friends in their late 20s, they're like, oh, I feel behind because I'm not married or I don't have a boyfriend, and I just think that's, I think
a lot of those things fall into the bias that we talk about psychology wise when it comes to money is the herd mentality. It's the social experiment, right? So when you have your social circle that's doing things, you instinctively feel out. And buying a home in your 20s and 30s with your friend group is typically like a marker of, oh, Johnny got that. I must be doing something wrong. You can slip into this like comparison thing.
Yeah.
I'm bringing this up with the rent versus buy because I've seen a lot of mistakes happen because of it. And remember, you don't want to make money decisions based on emotions. If you're emotionally thinking you're behind because someone else or friend groups or peers around you have something you don't or are doing something, be careful to make sure that you don't get out over your skis and do something you shouldn't do or you're not ready for. Because I have seen that.
This might be part of the psychology of this, but there are less people that want to maintain a home.
Yeah.
Mow, do repairs. So they like the idea of renting and being like, hey, the sink's broken. Go fix that.
I'm going to be so honest. Like we rent from my husband's grandparents and that's such a nice feeling when something breaks. So you're like, that's not my responsibility. Or
It is nice. This is why it's good for yourself to run a pros and cons list. And it's kind of like put out the noise, right? Put out what people are doing around you, what you think the American dream is. If it works for you, it works for you. Because let me just tell you something loud and clear. Owning a home or not owning a home is not going to be the single thing that's going to tear you down or make your overall wealth building process not work. Now, by not owning a home, you should be investing elsewhere and doing other things with liquid dollars. I'm not saying just go and spend everywhere, okay? But I think someone needs to hear that because, yeah, if you find that, oh man, I do find the flexibility a big thing for me. I do find the fact that I've been open about this. I barely know what a hammer is. I'm pretty open about it. Jared, looks at me like I'm,
less of a man.
Lesser than,
Yeah.
and I get that.
Oh
most guys do, and that's
Bold
okay.
statement.
But I wasn't raised around that.
Yeah.
I just wasn't. So it's not even just wasn't. So if it weren't for my wife and her parents who are huge into real estate, I'd probably rent. My investment brain would be like, I'll just invest the difference in the market. That's what I would do anyways.
Yeah.
Now I love liquidity. That's a big thing I like, right? I like to be able to move in and out and, I need cash for this or just knowing it's accessible. That's always been something really strong for me. I think that's, So
Yeah.
in real estate, I might have equity, but I know I can't touch it unless I take a line against it or I sell the thing.
And listen, I consider myself somewhat handy, but like I remember we first moved into our house and the garbage disposal broke.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, okay, I can't call anybody. I have to do this. I don't want to do that. And
Right.
it took a whole Saturday. I had to pull the whole thing out, clean
Yeah.
it out, fix it, put it back in. So like now owning a home, I can see why people simply don't want to do that. So it's convenience.
It is, and I
factor.
think it's important to be real about it. No, I don't plant a flag on either side. Like there's some guys I've talked to who says, no, buying is absolutely needs to be a part of the financial plan. Look, I've always believed that there's part quantitative and part qualitative. So the qualitative side, there's numbers, there's math, there's equity being driven in real estate and other asset classes, sure. But there's also the quality of life. And
Yeah.
I've sat with many clients sitting there like, yeah, they're like me, like, I don't know, it just stresses me out. I don't mind renting. It's nice. I get to go travel. I get to do some things. You know what I mean? I'm like, awesome. Let's do you. But it's also to talk about tenure. If you do own, I do tend to say you should own for a longer time period. That's the long-term play. A mortgage is a great example. Typically, the first 12 to 15 years of a mortgage is mostly interest, if not all interest. You're not even paying down into principal in your own, the ownership part of it, until like the 12th or 15th year. I'm owning my place. Every month I'm paying it down. I'm like, well, how have you owned it? 6 years? I'm like, you haven't paid down squat, dude. You will, but not yet.
Yeah, but the equity
You know?
argument, I can say, okay, I've only paid into this much of my loan, but the equity
But
that
the
I
equity's
have
grown.
in it.
Yeah, totally. And that's what I'm saying. It's a two-parter there, no doubt. The rent versus buy thing is an interesting one, but there are some pros and cons to both. I think it's a matter of your lifestyle. Owning versus not owning is not going to impact, if all things considered, should not impact your overall wealth journey.
It's very interesting to hear because I would have thought every financial advisor would be like, no, home.
If
Yeah.
I looked at a financial plan and I looked at a 30 or 40 year accumulation phase for a client from, let's say, 30 to 60, and they were putting away for 401k, they were putting away for just other buckets, which you should do anyways, whether you own or don't own, right? Not having real estate, it would have a very little impact on their overall liquidity and retirement income.
That's shocking.
It's reassuring though.
I'm not saying not to own, but I want you to also know, like, if you don't own or you don't feel like you never afford it, as long as you place your money in other investments, your retirement's going to be fine.
I mean, for me, it stresses me out because we live in such a fire zone that like insurance is really expensive.
Yeah.
And like if something were to ever happen, like you kind of pour, at least here, like all of your money into this one thing, that I would rather just get renter's insurance and like deal with my stuff.
Yeah.
Opposed to like, I don't know. It's such a tragedy when like those things actually do happen that I'm like, I don't know that I could deal with that.
It's definitely a two-sided coin. And I think, but it's good to hear you say like your wealth building journey can be just as profitable with or without.
Absolutely can. I don't care what age you're watching this, or I want you to know I have run hundreds, if not thousands of financial plans. I've been in the financial service industry for 22 years. And let me just be loud and clear. You not ever owning a home is not gonna impact your retirement life. Can it help? Sure, any asset class can. Rent versus buying, I think, is a really good subject matter. It's something that I know you might have clicked on this thinking like, this guy's might say it's not that. Just know who you are, know the pros and cons, like we talked about, the flexibility, the costs, the maintenance, all those things come into play here. But I do want to be clear, a couple big points here is, emotionally speaking, it's not something that you have to have in order to be successful, whether it's your own worth or your money worth. It's not true, okay? There's other things you can invest in, it's okay. If you own real estate, it's great. Own that, enjoy it. Also invest in other areas. That's the other thing too. Don't go all into one camp and just be in real estate and not do any other liquid investments. There's a combination here that's important. I think that's important for everyone to hear.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
We had fun with this one. Hope you guys did too. As always, thank you so much for our subscribers. We love you guys each and every week. If you're watching us and you found us and we're new, just know we talk about all things money, different concepts. Leave us a comment, send us a direct message if you would like on our YouTube channel, on our socials, at Mindset with Brad Barrett. We'd love to hear topics you want us to talk about. But we come at you every week with an episode. And as always, if you lead with love, everything's going to be all right. See you guys next week.